Okay, I'm gonna answer this in a broad kind of way, okay? Because I think it's relevant for parents and advocates to understand some of the complexities when it comes to this particular issue. Now, we have these kind of cases that we deal with more than we would prefer. And prefer meaning that this shouldn't be happening to any family, it should be happening to any child. But I'm seeing an increase in these problems across the states where we have offices. Okay, in a case against the school board where a special needs child is abused by an employee and it's not reported immediately, what goals should I, as a parent suing, should set in this legal matter? What are some things that I should ask for to prevent situations such as this in the future, as well as what should I ask for to seek that proper justice is served? Now, as far as, let's go ahead and say, what are the goals should I, as a parent suing, set for the legal matter? Number one, I don't know what attorney that you might have obtained, but that's going to be a big thing. Why? Because your child is special education identified. And so therefore, there's attorneys like myself that have an expertise in this area that understand sort of the collision of a few different legal theories in this area. Number one, I'm also, because I do this all the time, I also understand where the protective mechanisms are that exist for the school. All right. Number one is that I should get the right attorney is the thing that I would recommend. Now, that doesn't mean that if you have a damages attorney, a tort attorney, somebody that sues, that's fine, because there's two different aspects of this that you need to attack. And, potentially, but I can tell you that when it comes to privately suing a school system for, let's say, abuse, is not that easy. Why? Because in states like Alabama, they've provided school personnel with immunity. Now, also back in the 70s, Alabama also codified the ability for teachers to use a certain amount of physical force in order to control their classrooms. So I'm not sitting there saying that that's a justification, but it is something that the schools hide behind with regards to their attorneys when their employees are caught doing things like this. Now, is it an excuse? No. Now, kids are, I'm just saying that it provides them legal cover. But then the other thing that ends up happening, unfortunately, is Alabama back in, I believe it was 2014, gave and extended what used to be implied immunity. Alabama, the legislature went a step further and gave the school personnel what's called codified immunity. And codified immunity is a much higher standard that me as a private attorney for a parent would have to overcome in order to go after the school for, let's say, money damages. All right. So that's another problem that the parent has to think about. Now, most attorneys out there do not understand these things, and it is very difficult for them to navigate that. And so that's what, otherwise Alex Shinara, for example, in Alabama would have a billboard everywhere saying, is your kid abused at school? Call me. But he doesn't, because it is an area where a lot of damages attorneys shy away from, because there's just not a lot of legal leeway in those areas. Okay, so first step should always be taking the special education route to where you can get immediate corrective action in place, but it doesn't impact or negatively impact, especially because of the recent Perez decision from the Supreme Court, doesn't necessarily impact negatively your ability to have a separate damages case. But you need to get to the bottom of what's happening in the special education program. You need to fix that for your child. You need to make sure that there's protective mechanisms in place. And then you also need to overhaul the child's program to where this kind of stuff doesn't happen again. And how does it not happen again? You got to bring the right outside professionals in to train the staff, because a lot of this abuse comes from ignorance from the staff, impatience from the staff with the child. How do we cure that? We cure that through education. We cure that through training. All right. So in your situation, I would make sure that I have somebody that has the professional expertise on the special education level, but then also an attorney that understands damages and how to navigate around immunity. I do not do the damages stuff, guys. Now, there's attorneys that we collaborate with that do, that you know, we can make recommendations to, and we have. But we are so busy fixing the problems on the IDEA level where money damages are not available. Corrective action is available. But you need to solve this problem through a corrective action first and foremost before potentially pursuing, which is very, very difficult and very rare and highly risky, before you can pursue going after them individually or as a school system for the abuse aspect, okay? But you need to have an attorney that understands that. So it is okay to have multiple attorneys because you're working off of two different legal theories or legal approaches. And under this one, now, because of the Perez decision, you could potentially go after them on a federal level. But with regards to looking for justice, I'm sorely disappointed with our police and our DHR or CPS, Children Protective Services, whatever your particular state calls it. I know in Alabama it's DHR. The schools are mandatory reporters, so they're supposed to report on themselves as well. And this is where a lot of schools simply do not do that. In fact, that's in violation of mandatory reporting laws, and there should be criminal consequences for the staff that did not report, that do not report. And in fact, I'm starting to see that more. I have a case that we just completed in East Alabama to where they picked up the teacher. The aide was abusing the child, and the grand jury came back with charges against the aide. And it's been almost a year, and they went and picked up the teacher because the teacher did not report and was there and knew about it. And so therefore they did trigger the mandatory reporting requirement to where the teacher also is being charged for failing to comply with mandatory reporting because she did not report the abuse from the aide. So this is the only thing that's going to stop this on the justice side. It's not going to be suing for damages. That's not going to be it because nobody's going to know about it except for you and the school system. And quite frankly, they're not pulling their checkbooks out. It's not hurting them financially. So you have to have your district attorney. You have to have your local police. But unfortunately, many of our police departments now have lost their neutrality in these areas because they send SRO officers, school officers inside the school, which the schools pay for these officers to be present. Well, because the school pays most or all of the salaries during the school year for these officers to be present in their schools, not really that neutral, guys. And they're really not that interested in investigating claims of abuse against special needs kids. I'd like to say that they would, and I'd like to say that they look at our kids with differentiated needs and special needs, disabilities, like humans, but a lot of police officers simply don't. Just like a lot of just neurotypical human adults out there just do not look at our children in the same equal way as they do other children. And so that's unfortunate, but this is where I've had too many of these Child Protective Services, DHR, police departments, district attorneys absolutely fail in their role of sort of equal perspective of crime and punishment and justice and who needs protection and who doesn't and who gets it and who doesn't, okay? So in situations like that, I can tell you that's where the biggest frustration is. But that's where you get justice. It's not going to be through the money damages. That's not necessarily. I think in a lot of ways that's sort of the only thing that our society can do in many instances. But at the same time, true justice comes through also having to, I guess, suffer the consequences of your choices and your decisions. And that typically is applied through our criminal code. For the people that have done things like this. And that can only be done through our police department and our Department of Human Resources, or CPS, and through our district attorneys. And I'm seeing a failure on that side, a collective societal failure to want to step up and do something about those issues, okay? First and foremost, though, you have to fix these problems on the IEP level using somebody that has an expertise and a knowledge to do that.